All right, in this video, I'm going to briefly tell you a story of my life, um, and including the events that happened that altered my state of mind, which allowed me to clearly see the world, and also which caused me to, as far as I know, um, eliminate my stress and anxiety. So, I was born in a very tiny village in Vietnam. Um, my parents, my dad was a fisherman, and my mom would bring the fish to the market to sell. My mom is still illiterate; she could barely write her name. And my dad, I think he had an equivalent of a elementary school or middle school education in the village in Vietnam. So I don't think that even equates to elementary school in the US. And I left around the age of 4 or 5. I don't quite remember. And when I arrived in the US, I think I was roughly 5 or 6. And my parents had a very hard time adapting to life in the US. So think about it this way: they were raised in a very tiny village in Vietnam. So the mental model of the world is very tiny. And then they come to the US, and so now they have to use whatever they learned in Vietnam, their mental model of living in Vietnam, and try to merge or adapt to the way of living in the US. And so at every step of the way, it's very challenging for them. They have to figure a lot of things out, and they don't speak the language. My mom still don't speak the language, and my dad can barely speak the language. Um, so I had no foundation for me to live in the US. I had to figure everything out. Well, not everything. I had to figure out most of everything by myself to adapt to living in the US. And if I left Vietnam roughly the age of 4 to 5, part of the foundation has already set in for me. So as a child, your foundation, part of your foundation is set around the age of 4, and then some more set at the age of 10, I think, roughly. You'll have to dig into the science and say psychology of that if you want more accurate information. And so the reason why life was very rough for me is because I don't have any guidance, or not any, but barely any guidance. Everything was challenging. I had to learn everything by myself. I couldn't ask my parents for help on any of these things because they don't know either. There's no way for them to really know unless they really go out there and figure this out by themselves, which they did not. They were focused on making a living and providing a roof over our head and feeding us. So they were neglectful, and like most immigrant parents, they their parenting style is neglectful, and they would use fear-based parenting. And so they said a lot of mean things. For example, they said, to one of my siblings, "We found you in a garbage can." I don't remember why they said that, but that's what they said, and it scarred my sibling for life. They said some other things to me and my other siblings as well. I'm not going to repeat them, but those things pretty much scarred us for life. And so, not having a good foundation, made it very difficult for me to get through life, right? And so I'll, we also moved around a lot. Um, every few years we would move, and up to when I was, let's see, in fifth grade I moved. In sixth grade I moved. Seventh grade I moved, I think, 2 times. Eighth grade I moved, maybe not eighth grade, but ninth grade I know I moved like 2 or 3 times. At a certain point, I kind of gave up on school. I was getting into the flow of it, but I sort of gave up on school. I just did the minimum to get by, and I sort of given up on making friends too. I was able to find groups of friends to hang out with and things like that, but I didn't connect more deeply with any of them because it takes a lot of effort. And since I kept moving so much, there wasn't any stability. So in my mind, I was like, why even bother um, investing a lot of time into these relationships if I keep moving, right? Um, there are a lot more difficulties, but I'm not going to go through all of them. Just I will abstract my difficult life by saying that I have many, many challenges in my life that I had to overcome, even to this day. Because remember, my foundation sucked. So whatever I have as my foundation, I still have to face it even to today. And the one thing that got me to be successful as I am today, and relative success, I am a software architect in a very large financial firm, and I probably make more money than 10%. I mean, I'm the top 10% earners in the US, to give you perspective. So, relatively successful, even though I had so many difficult challenges. And I think that the one thing that got me to where I am is that I love challenges. Since my life sucked, the thing that drives me is overcoming challenges. Because when you overcome challenges, you get that hit of dopamine, and that hit feels good. And so I kept putting myself in tough situations or situations that I liked and I wanted to get better at, so that I can get that dopamine hit. I didn't know that at the time, but this is what it is. So I kept overcoming one challenge after another, to get that dopamine hit. And I got better and better at solving problems because of this. And I kept facing harder and harder problems because when you're addicted to challenges, you have to do harder things. Otherwise, it just doesn't make you feel good. Like, I could solve the same puzzle 10 times. I mean, the first time it was fun, feels good. Second time, a little bit less so. 10th time, I don't feel anything at all. So challenges kept on getting harder and harder. That's why I am, where I am in my career, because I kept on challenging myself. The problem with this is that as the challenges get harder and harder, and as the dopamine hit gets more and more satisfying, everything else in life became more dull. Because in your body or your mind, there is a pain pleasure balance, where you are constantly, your mind automatically compares the previous state of, pleasure to the current state of pleasure if you're tackling a challenge right now. And if it is lower than your previous state, you're not going to feel as good. So things like everyday life got dull for me. And at the same time, this other problem came up, which is since I got addicted to challenges and I was so used to overcoming challenges, I saw everything in the world as problems to be solved. So every situation I'm in, I'm thinking, okay, what problem am I trying to solve in this situation, and what are the solutions to overcoming these problems? And the problem with that is not everything is a problem, but up until I think 2 months ago, that's how I saw everything, and everything that I did was to overcome a problem, even relationships, parenting, work, obviously work. And so it was driving my kids crazy, and it was driving my wife crazy, because I set a lot of expectation, because I think, the expectations are my solutions to problems that I think are there. And the problem with that is I pretty much became a controlling person, because I viewed everything as a problem. And so I set these expectations because I thought that it would make everybody's life better. But the problem is, if you're trying to control other people, they're going to push back, especially my wife. She does not take shit. And if she does not like what I have to say, or how I want to approach something, or I want her to do something that she does not like, she will tell me straight up. This is both what I love and what I hate about her, but now it's all love. So I kept hitting this wall, right? Because I saw everything as a problem, and I have the solution. I'm very good at having the solution. So why is she not listening to me? And why are my kids fighting back and misbehaving and all that stuff? Like, all this came out of the expectations that I have, right? I want things to be done a certain way. Things are not done a certain way. Since I have the expectation, I will become angry and stressed out and worry, because I'm thinking, hey, I want to, do this so that we can make everything efficient and effective, like work, because that's how, work runs. But at home is different. So I want all of these things, but it's not getting done. So I'm like stressed out. I'm like, why is it not getting done? Why aren't you listening to me? Like, why don't you get it? Like, it'll make life so much better. Just do it. So I kept on hitting that wall. And it got so bad that my mind was just like, I was getting so stressed out. And I had a lot of anxiety because of this, because I'm like, oh, this is not getting done, and I'm afraid that our kids would turn out this way or that way, and our house, this or that. It was stressing me out. It gave me a lot of anxiety. And then one day, I'm like, F it. No more expectations. I don't expect anything anymore. And so I told my wife this. I'm like, okay, seriously, like, I'm not mad. Just do whatever you want, do whatever you think is right, and I will do the best that I can. If if I think there are chores that needs to be done and you're not doing it, I'll do it. I'll work my normal job, and then when I'm off work, I will do as much as I can, and I will get to a point where I'm exhausted and I don't want to do it anymore, and I would just leave it. If the house is dirty, the house is dirty. I'm just not going to stress about it anymore. I'm just tired of um, I'm just tired of fighting. Right when I did that, no more stress, no more anxiety. My wife, she was kind of skeptical, right? Because I've been like this my whole life. She was kind of skeptical, so like she was like treading lightly. And then after a while, she's like, okay, this guy is really serious. Like, he has no expectations for me. Then our relationship got so much better. And right after that, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, what happened there? I let go of something, and then my life got better. And so I started to do more reading about psychology and spirituality and stuff like that. And I've read a lot up until this point too. But I had just gone through an experience that kind of altered my way of thinking, right? So I went back to all the videos and a lot of the books that I read before. And what I found out was that I was attached to this identity that I've built up throughout my life. And that identity is that I am a very good problem solver. And that identity got me a really, really good job, or really good jobs, because I progressed very fast throughout my career because of it. And in my mind, my rationality around that, as far as my relationship with my wife, is since I'm a good problem solver, she wants me around because I'm able to provide and give her everything that she need, and things like that. And I'm able to buy all the things that I want, buy a house, buy a car, all the gadgets. Like, aside from like super luxury items like a sports car or something, which I don't care about, I get to buy all the gadgets that I want because of this identity. So I was getting attached to this identity that affords me all of these things that I have right now. And in my mind, including my family, right? So I attach, having a wife and kids to that identity. So all of this is, one package, this identity that I attach myself to. And if you're very attached to an identity, what happens is you have this identity and you have all of these things around you. What happens if you lose it? Your mind is going to do this. Your mind is going to say, oh, if I don't keep this shit up, I'm going to lose all of these things. If I mess up, I'm going to lose all of these things. That is the source of stress and anxiety. When I was able to detach myself from this identity, because it caused me so much stress and anxiety. And remember, I hit a wall. I hit a wall that I couldn't get past anymore. And the what I decided to do instead is to just give it up. No expectations, right? And after I did that, stress and anxiety just went away. this identity was so big for me. This is my core, the biggest identity that I have, because I built a whole life around this identity. And when I detach myself to it, meaning I was able to, what's another way to explain that? I was able to, like, emotionally and, logically detach myself from it. When I did that, stress and anxiety just went away, because I don't have any fear anymore of losing anything. And it made no sense for me to have that fear, because this is what people don't realize. When we live life, we are constantly experiencing things, learning things, to be able to respond to life events. And as we do more and more of that, we get better and better at responding to life events. If you don't run away from it. Okay, if you run away from some events, then you're not getting better at those events. And for me, I don't run away from a lot of the events that happen to me. So that's why I got better and better at solving problems, and hence my identity. So, talking from my perspective, I got, I get better. I got better and better at solving problems. I'm not going to lose that. I'm not going to lose that skill. I'm not going to lose the experiences that I've already acquired. You can't. You just can't lose that unless, you get into a car accident and your brain is messed up or whatever. Okay, I'm not talking about those kind of things. So there is no such scenario. Well, okay, talking relatively again. There's no scenario that I can think of in normal circumstance that I would be losing everything. Probably worst case scenario, I move into an apartment. But still, software engineers these days, especially experienced one like me, I can easily make over 100K working for an unknown company. So I'm not going to starve. My family's not going to starve. They're going to be okay. But why was I so stressed out and have all this fear? Well, that's what your mind does. It plays the worst case scenario when you're not feeling good. Think about it. When you're very, very stressed out and your mind and your body is not feeling good, you're not going to think straight. You're going to think worst case scenario. And that's what happened to me. So I was in the constant state of stress and anxiety, and relationship with my wife was like not so great, and so it added to more stress and more anxiety. And my kids misbehaved sometime, and that gave me more stress and more anxiety. And then I was in a bad state of mind and state of body, which caused me a lot more stress and anxiety. These things are connected, right? And in later videos, I'll go into each one of these things and I'll relate it back to my story to help you guys understand. And hopefully you can take that back and apply it and see it for yourself in your own life. And so I did a bunch of research into what happened to me there. So I detached myself to my identity, and that allowed me to be free. Right? In spirituality, they talk about this notion of being free. It's being free of your identity. And there was a book that I was reading, and it talked about altered state of consciousness. And in the book, the author was talking about similar situation to me. He was trying to find truth, and so he went on the science path, right, to learning about what's truth and reality and all those things. And at every step of the way, the only thing he saw was doubt. Because, not many people of you, I'm thinking not many of you know this, but what you see in reality is not really what is in reality. It's just how your body, your eyes, your ears, everything sees the world. But that's not what truly exists in the world. Some argue that it's all just waves, or I think some argue that it's just all energy. But our human body interprets all of that information as what we actually see. Okay. So where was I going with that? Lost my train of thought. I don't remember where I was going with that. Let me backtrack. So I'm talking about my identity, detaching myself from it. And then I was talking about a book. Okay. So this scientist, so everywhere he went, there's more and more and more doubt. And then finally, he got so frustrated, and all of a sudden, he thought infinite doubt. There's an infinite amount of doubt. And this has been validated by a lot of scientists. There is an infinite number of doubts. There is no truth that our human mind and body can capture, because we just don't have that capability. And no living organism will ever have that capability besides God. I don't know if that's a living organism or considered a living organism. Actually, I guess it is. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. That's very deep. So he was like, oh, infinite doubt. There's like infinite doubt in this world. And that changed his state of consciousness. That changed the way he viewed the world, and he didn't have any more stress and anxiety over it. That was similar to my scenario. I saw everything as a problem, and finally I was like, okay, no more. I'm just not going to perceive everything that way anymore. No more expectations. And that caused me to have an altered state of mind. After that happened, I saw the world in a very different way. I finally understood, a lot about Buddhism and other spiritual teachings of, identity and the ego and the pain body, and detaching yourself from your identity, because that got me very far in life, but it will not carry me throughout the rest of my life. At some point, I, including everyone, have to detach themselves, be able to move way far past that level at which you're at. Because if you're still attached, you're gonna be afraid of losing it, or you're gonna attach some emotional state to it. And that's what's causing that's what's holding people back. That was what held me back, because everything I do, I'm kind of more careful than I need to be, because I have this fear of losing, fear of failure. I know a lot of you have fear of failure, especially the high achievers. And it stems from this. It stems from this attachment, from this identity that you've built for yourself. And if you find a way to detach yourself from this identity, you're going to go much further, because you don't have anything like fear and anxiety and stress holding you back. A lot of our energy gets sucked away when we're fearful, we're stressed, or we are too anxious. So if you figure out how to detach yourself from this identity, you're going to go way further than you can. And that is how you find meaning in life. Because this fear and stress and anxiety and this attachment to these identity is what's driving your actions. These actions are from that. These actions are from, a lot of them are from fear and stress and anxiety too. And if that's mixed up in there, your mind is not going to be clear, and you're going to be acting based on that. It's not going to be pure consciousness that you're acting from. You're going to be acting from your ego a lot of times because of this attachment to your identity. So if you're able to detach yourself, you're going to be able to find meaning and purpose in your life. Because the lens that you're looking through, is going to be clear. It's not going to be fogged up by your identity. You'll understand yourself a lot better. You'll understand the world a lot better. And you'll definitely enjoy your life more. So that is my story. And now that I've gotten to this point where I am able to detach myself from my identity, I want to talk about some of the core components that allowed me to get to this point. And so those are the core components that I will be talking about in the upcoming videos, and I will try to, as best as I can, communicate these concepts and relate that back to my own experience, and maybe give different examples so that you can bring that back and validate it within your own life. And hopefully you can be free as well from your identity. Thank you.